Recording. Yeah. Okay. Olisinyezwa, Simple Poems. Today, I walked on top of a hill like Moses, and I felt alone, like someone locked alone in prison. Today, I had no idea of time, of human hands, and I could not breathe. Nothing at all was happening. Today, I committed myself wholeheartedly to the finest things in life, to write simple poems and to sing line by line the cry of geese. And with that, welcome, Lisa. The floor is yours.
Thank you. It was lovely. Okay. So, first of all, can you hear me? It's a painting.
We can hear you.
We can't hear you properly.
Not at all.
Now we can hear you. When you moved, that was great.
Okay. So I'm gonna keep it over here. Then fine.
Awesome.
All right. Okay. So thank you first of all for having me. I was fortunate enough to run into Jacques and Ed a couple of days ago in Luxembourg. And thank you again for having me. Lovely. It's always lovely to have a moment. Okay, I'm just going to continue, but no, just give me like a sort of signal if it gets wonky. Yeah?
Okay, will do. I will switch on my camera and go. Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to be reading some poems from a collection that I have, I suppose, temporarily called this family of things. And it's basically about this relationship between her mother and her young son. It's not exactly clear as to how they came together, but she loves him as a mother would, and he is on the spectrum. So it's about how she observes him, his idiosyncrasies, his grasp of his surroundings, his ideas of material things and the metaphysical, and then at the same time, the collection is a lot about the primary speaker. So there are parts where the mother speaks, and then there are parts of the collection where the boy speaks. And I think it's pretty clear when, to identify who's speaking. Okay, so the first poem is called Leaving. He wants to know how long the DNA of a fetus remains in its mother's body after birth, how long it takes for the cells to exit the bloodstream. He wants to know if she felt the doctor's pull on the umbilical cord to remove the placenta after birth, if she felt them cut into her skin. He does not ask questions about the baby after birth. He doesn't want to know how long it took for his mother to leave him. So he asks questions about the solubility of blood and if I know how much of him was left behind. Nienes. I see some hands. Can I continue?
Those are hands clapping. You can continue.
Okay.
Clapping hands.
Sorry, I'm very Nienes. When learning about infancy, you are taught how to reduce the empty space between you and your baby, about leaning close before lifting so that they don't feel separated from you when being held. I remember how he'd press his head against my chest, how he'd nails into my skin, how he'd search for my heartbeat with his cold ear, and that even in his deepest sleep he'd remonstrate, "Be still, mama, come close, mama." Little has changed, except the nearness once measured in safekeeping is also measured in time apart. And so the nearness, the empty space, always grows. Phone calls. They ask how he's doing, invested in his progress like a metastatic cancer. I say he's quiet, consumed by things and only things. Some juvenile and insignificant, some dark and chthonic. It's always the underside of the edifice. Today, he preferred just to watch his apple, just to watch it turn brown, just to watch it self-destruct, like the metastatic cancer. So yeah, this is the boy. Oh nope. What about now? And now? Okay. So this is the boy speaking. Fish and other animals. I would not want to be a fisherman or the man whose job it is to pick up dead animals on roadsides. I'm uncomfortable around animals dead or alive or in between. Although Mama says fish don't really feel pain, I would hate to hear an orca swallow one. I would hate the smell from skimming the fat of the hide of an animal, big or small or in between. An uncomfortable silence. He runs his fingers through the wind chimes hanging from the living room ceiling. He says he must separate the knocking bamboo rods because tangled wind chimes mean the spirits are busy. I watch as he pleads with the spirits. I watch him study each string as if he were choreographing the movements of a puppet. He doesn't know the wind creeps in through every crack along every window. He doesn't see the crevices in the worn-out puppet. He doesn't see the curtains from their own quiet dance. He doesn't see me standing in the corner of this anechoic chamber.
Could you please reread that? I think we didn't get some of that. Yeah.
Okay, okay. An uncomfortable silence.
Yep, we hear you.
He runs his fingers through the wind chimes hanging from the living room ceiling. He says he must separate the knocking bamboo rods because tangled wind chimes mean the spirits are busy. I watch as he pleads with the spirits. I watch him study each string as if he were choreographing the movements of a puppet. He doesn't know the wind creeps in through every crack along every window. He doesn't see the crevices in the worn-out puppet. He doesn't see the curtains sway in their own quiet dance. He doesn't see me standing in the corner of this anechoic chamber. Cheers. The mouth. I eat everything you give me, even the things that I do not like. They are the small evils that my stomach can bear. But the small evils never touch my heart. They only travel to my belly button, which you said used to be my mouth. And you also told me that the mouth of a good child is like a fountain, and the mouths of the wicked are a bitter cup. So I drink everything you give me. I even drink the things I do not like. I drink the milk that comes from cows, which you said have 4 stomachs. And I wish I had that many for all the many small evils. On swimming. He doesn't want to learn how to swim because he cannot stand wet clothes clinging to his body. So he promises to practice holding his breath underwater in the bathtub we never use. And we never use the bathtub because he cannot stand to see the plug that covers the hole that sucks and sucks in all of the water. And this is how the boy's mind works. He doesn't know he's the polyester against his own skin. Telling. For days I struggled to feed the cat. There's no telling it what to do. Except the boy suggested I use my left hand because the mother has to switch her breasts when she feeds her baby. But the boy knows little about suckling or being suckled. He only knows my hands and spoons and teats made of silicone. And even the hand betrays the caregiver. The inexorable child, the inexorable cat, my hands are always tied. The archaeologist. We walk along the shoreline. He prefers the hard sand so they can measure his footprints. His eyes are fixed to the ground with calipers. He walks 2 steps behind me, stuffing granite stones into his pockets, estimating each stone's weight, inspecting each stone's place. The drive home is always quiet. His attention shifts to his hands. He observes them like an archaeologist, wiping and then blowing and then wiping and then blowing. Sounds. He says honeybees are wired to a sound threshold and that vibrations spark the construction of the hive. He says it is a sound that is felt and not heard that signals danger, and that he sometimes hears with the ears inside his belly. This is how I learned about the frustrations of a misophonic child. When the hive is too full, when it feels like it's crawling with noise, some have no choice but to leave or to run. I am the matchstick. I have to be careful with my words. There are no terms of endearment. I can only call him by his name. Anything else is paraffin. There can be no judgment. Judgment melts him into silence. I must praise his efforts to suffocate the fire. I'll do 2 more to kind of complete the narrative. It's achievable.
That is lovely.
Okay, every day. He won't wear elasticated pants or t-shirts with collars, and then there's the thing about pockets, except for when he's collecting stones. He won't eat in large groups, says he used to be a mantis, and then there's the thing about praying, except when he's conducting his train bound for glory. He won't go out into the rain, says he's not a farm animal. And then there's the thing about wet shoes, except for when he's walking on water. Small victories. There are no small victories for me. He cannot know that he's a challenge to my balance, that I'm suspended over mercurial water, that he shakes the tightrope underneath my feet, that I must readjust my weight, that I must look with geodesic eyes, that I must calculate the risks of passing a barking dog, of flushing a toilet, all for his sake.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Can we be greedy and ask for one more? Can we be greedy?
Hectic, John. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna read something that's kind of not connected to this.
That is okay. We want to hear it.
Okay, so this is from a separate project, and I won't say too much. So it's called It's called Devotees, and it starts with a little excerpt from Louis' book. My friend says I shut my eyes to God, that nothing else explains my aversion to reality. She says I'm like the child who buries her head in the pillow so as not to see. How does anyone become a devotee, she asks. Do you think there's an agreement? Do you think it's a gentle ushering into devotion? Do you think the falling is blissful? How does a child become a monk? My father said I must be, so I became. Here we are all renunciates, cloaked in the same divine light, wholly committed to kissing the earth. The postulant nun is cold apparently, but perhaps I've shut my ears to God. But I do love those stories of terrified communion, she said. The declarations people make to serve God during some awful event, perhaps on a shaking aeroplane, with a gun to the head, Kyrie eleison, from here on I will serve you. And Jesus said to Peter, Andrew, James, John, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James, Thaddeus, and Judas, come follow me and I will make you fishers of men. But I don't swim. Have you ever been caught in a riptide? She asks. Perhaps one has to be close enough to death to call on God. Maybe it's adjacency. None but the Almighty can save you. Fear none but Him. We all do what she says. We shut our eyes like the child who buries her head in the pillow when in prayer, or just to shade our eyes from the blinding light until we can no longer see.
Breathtaking. Can we all unmute ourselves and give Lisa a big round of applause?
Thank you. Yay, baby. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Your poetry is, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Louise Gluck. I'm a fan of your poetry. So I am automatically part of your fan base, whatever that is. And to open up the questions for the night, I will start just because I'm learning how to host better this year. This year I'm learning to be a better host and to ask better questions. I'm challenging myself. So The Archaeologist, I really love that poem. And you have a line about how the man in the poem is measuring. This is not really a question, more of a comment. It sort of made me think of Adrienne Rich, Motherite. For some reason, it made me think of like that
a poem we know very well.
Yeah, made me think of that poem. And then a question. I'm interested in your interest in the subject. So at least in most of the poems that you read tonight, there was something about having a boy in a lot of your poems, whether that boy was being observed or whether that boy was doing the observing. What is the curiosity with the subjectivity of the boy, or I'm trying to find the words, if not the subjectivity of the boy, but the voice of a child, essentially. If you could just answer that for me, that would be great. And as soon as you do, then questions are open. If you have a question, you can just put up your hand or indicate in some way that you want to talk, and I will call upon you and you may ask your question. Okay, that's it.
All right. Well, first of all, I took on the very sort of ambitious task of I wanted to create a specific narrative. And I mean, it's partly autobiographical. I took care of a child who we now know is, on the spectrum. And so there's a little bit of sort of personal observations. But then when I went into the MA, so a lot of, Nando and I are from the same master's class at UWC. But when I went into the MA and I sort of began to think about the creative piece I wanted to put together, and I wanted it to be narrative based. And I'm always been sort of somewhat obsessed about the figure of a child. I mean, I think children are sort of the most fascinating ones amongst us. And I remember it started off with just observing the way kids play, because the psychology of playing is quite interesting. And then I decided that he would be a little more colorful than other kids. I think I should have read a little more of his stuff from his voice, but I think there was enough balance to sort of point out that she's as intrigued as she is by him. She's in herself. So the primary voice is quite interesting stuff, the things she observes. But she is not me. Yeah, of course, we've established that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your question, friend. I will send you an email. Let me think about it over 6 days.
That's okay. I will read the email eagerly. I'll wait the email. Okay. Are there any questions from the room? Are there any questions for Lisa? Thank you for that. It sort of did answer the question, but we need to talk. Any other? Oh, Jacques, the floor is yours.
Okay.
So
Currently on.
yeah, I'm still formulating my question really, but it has to do with the perspective of the child, and sometimes, you know, my first impression was the perspective of the child is odd, and sometimes, you know, I mean, unusual, and sometimes there was this, a feeling that the child had insight, that the boy had a kind of insight, that he was not just that he was. Oh, it's difficult actually to talk about the spectrum. I find struggling to find the words, but I was fascinated by his perception about the spirits being busy when the wind chime was tangled. How did you get inside his mind? Did you have conversations? Did you just have a lot of experience? Did you have conversations with yourself? Did you think a lot about what sort of perspective you would give him, or did the poems write themselves more, or did you put a lot of conscious planning and thought into them beforehand? Something like that.
Okay, all right, thank you. I suppose a bit of both. You know, I mean, they are sort of overriding themes that I began to realize, which happened like very organically, like his sort of preoccupation with moving things and hands. There are certain things that just kept coming up in the poems. And then at some point, I think towards the end, when I was, you know, the crunch time, when you suddenly have to write a certain amount of poems in a short amount of time, because some of us need some pressure. I started to rely on those things, and I suppose all of those sort of habits, you know, that's what makes up, you know, that's sort of helped me complete the picture. Quite naturally there was this preoccupation with the hands, and then it pops up in another poem, and that's how I began to build the character. But there were definitely moments where I would come up with something I thought was okay, and then okay, it doesn't fit, doesn't sound like him. I will say that the poem Nearness, should I read it again?
Yes, please.
I read. Okay, the poem Nearness came, and another one came long after this MA was marked and graded and whatever. And it was quite hard to kind of, I laugh with Quibus quite often, because he'd ask what's happening with this sort of collection. I'd say, no, the boy who I refer to as my lodger has left. I'm waiting for him to come back so I can finish it. But this poem, for instance, I managed to write 2 months, like a year and a half after I ended this collection, so to speak. So I suppose there are certain things I could sort of, you know, take out from other poems to kind of help usher this one in. Okay, Nearness. When learning about infancy, you're taught how to reduce the empty space between you and your baby, about leaning in close before lifting so that they don't feel separated from you and being held. I remember how he'd press his head against my chest, how he'd dig his nails into my skin, how he'd search for my heartbeat with his cold ear. That even in his deepest sleep, he'd remonstrate, "Be still, Mama. Come closer, Mama." Little has changed, except the nearness once measured in safekeeping is also measured in time apart. So the nearest the empty space always grows. Yeah, but that's also the only one I managed to. This one and another one that I managed to write way after, you know, he left my head. It was a bit of to dig back into, you know, some dark moments. Okay, cool. I think I answered your question, Jacques.
Yeah, thank you. I think you did. I mean, I think once maybe one's attitude towards the boy also changes. Maybe I assumed that we would be worrying about him quite a bit, and he started getting to me in the sense that I started feeling he knew stuff that I didn't know. So yeah, I'll spend more time with him. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Jacques. Ed, the floor is yours.
Hey, Nana. Hi. Hey, Lisa. Thank you for lovely reading. I'm afraid I came a little late to the reading, but what I did hear was captivating. Those little fragments are all fascinating in their own right. And what I found while you were reading was, no matter what the perspective that you adopted, that there was a real, I guess, fluidity. You managed to pull in your listener or your reader, and I guess the thought that then came to me, and maybe you already have touched on it by referring to your collection, and this collection of poems. I'd love to see how they all hold together, these puzzle pieces. What's going to happen to those fragments? That's my one question.
Yeah, but like I said, I was very ambitious. So this is obviously just one part of the bigger story. And yeah, it would obviously, we need to know what becomes of him. And yeah, I will not sort of leave it as it is. I think it's a little too, yeah, there's a lot going on in there. So it's in many ways still incomplete. Something has to happen still, and I'm sure he's fine. I think we just all just a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's fine. Yeah, he's okay.
No,
Well, he'll be fine in the story.
no, I mean it's like many things. They sometimes take time to find their form, their eventual form. I wasn't here at the beginning, so I don't know if you had a chance to mention anything about the poetry readings that you host at the Commons.
I will. I'll do this towards the end. Yeah.
Okay, I mean I could put something in the chat as well, if people want
Thank
to
you.
find out more about that.
Yes, please do
Thank
that,
you.
Ed. Yeah,
Okay,
that would be great.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think the next question is Barbara, I'm pretty sure. I'm getting better at this. Barbara, no? The hand was Jacques? Okay. If not you guys, then Dale. Dale, the floor is yours.
Hey y'all. Hey Lisa. So Lisa, I had a
Hey,
question.
Dale. All the way
Hey.
from China. What's the time there?
It's 2:05 a.m., but I'm on holiday.
Oh, my word. Bless you. You're so sweet.
I'm on
Thank you.
holiday right now, and I actually wanted to say thank you firstly for that really, really inspiring and touching poem. So I'm a teacher out in China, and I have a student on the spectrum, right? And for me, that is so heartwarming and quite exhilarating, or it makes me so excited to go back to school when school starts, to just sit with my kid, because and he is the one person that I speak the most about of my experience here, because he would do a whole lot of different cute things where I'm just extremely mesmerized by him in my class, so hearing you talk about it, it resonates so much with me. So I'm so grateful for that, and thank you for sharing that. And I would really love to hear some more of your collections. And I know that you don't always do them on an online Zoom portal or anything like that, but I do know you mentioned that you could send the lovely host, friend of mine too, but yeah, the lovely host emails. So I'm wondering if I could perhaps, once I don't know if it's your own collections you're writing, but I would love to read a bit more on that personally myself. especially since
Yeah,
like
for sure. I mean, yeah. Thank you, Dale. That's so kind. I will send it to you. In fact, if anyone wants to read what I read, I can send it to you. Not particularly. Cool.
Thank you.
Well, yeah.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. You didn't have a question, yeah?
No, I don't have a comment and a statement. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, baby.
All right, there are some more cute statements in the chat. Mari had a statement there. I think you might have read those. She said, agonizingly beautiful poetry. Swift Photo says, cool, Lisa, keep up the poetic spirit. And Georgia Horton says, beautiful, thank you, Lisa. So thank you so much, Lisa. If there are more questions, the floor is open. If there aren't any more questions, we'll take a 5-minute breather. And after those 5 minutes, we will start with the open mic session. So right now it's 8:08. So 5 minutes after 8:08 is, what is that? 8:08, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So at 8:13, we'll come back. So I'll be playing more Frank Ocean, unless people want to have a fat chat. And Julie, she has a comment. You can talk to Julie. You can sidebar us from your conversation.
Fantastic, Julie.
Okay.
Okay.